tell you how to install some wood floors. First you want to do is you want to go through and you want to grind all the seams and make sure that, because houses are built and the roof's not put on right away, sometimes the seam peak up a little bit. So you want to go through and you want to grind all these seams. After you go through and grind all the seams, you want to cut all the door jambs so that the wood slides underneath the door jambs nicely. You don't have to go too far into the base because you'll put shoe molding in front of them. After you cut the jambs with a jam saw, hand jam saw or a big one, you'll want to clean up all the dust. Then after you clean up all the dust, you want to make sure the job site's square. You don't want to come to a wall and have the row of wood flooring go from this wide down to that wide. So what you do is you go through and you check the measure from that wall to this wall and make sure that it's square. So we did a chalk line right here, and we're going to start off with this chalk line, and we're going to just work forward to that wall, and we measured it, so it's all going to be nice and square. After you make sure the job's square, you want to lay out this underlayment paper. What it does is helps prevent dust, helps prevent moisture from coming in from the basement. After you lay out the tar paper, you want to start laying out the wood. That way you can just keep the seams nice and separate on a stagger. After you do that, you start nailing. Start off the chalk line and work forward. Okay, so we have everything laid out. We put it together, we racked out the floor, and we laid out all the boards, and we kept the seams separate at a pretty good distance. So it's all laid out like a puzzle because they come in random lengths. So you just don't want the seams to be too close, and you don't want H seams and anything like that, but you want it to look good, so you spread out seams. Then when you're ready to start, we'll put the compressor setting. We'll set it to about 120, and if we want to change it, we can just twist that, plus or minus. Alright, starting the first row. We got a little gap back here in case for expansion room, and I just get it close to that line and follow the line and
get the first.
There's going to be some shoe molding, so you can have that gap. So we'll nail the first 3 rows just like this. Turn this board around to mark it. And that. So we'll do 2 more rows like that, and then we'll get started with the nailer. Ready to switch to the nailer. so when you get to trim pieces like a nosing or steps, you might wonder what to do. So what I did here is this was overhanging just like on every other step. And what I did is I used a circular saw and I cut it back, and then there's still a little left at the edges, so I used this saw and just sawed off the edge. And then I cut these. I used this saw to cut these underneath the base right here on both sides. And after I did that, I cut this, I measured it and cut it. And I want to put the nosing under the base because there's no molding right here on the sides. So when you walk up the steps, you see the nice, how it's tight to the edge on the sides. So after you get the nosing in, you want to put some glue in there. And you glue and nail the nosings to give it more support. So you'll throw some glue in there. On the nosing, there's actually this little overhang where there's an edge right there, and that edge is where you put it into. And it's because of a code, you know, you have to have at least 3/4 of an overhang. Some states it's different, some it's a 1/2 inch. Alright, so I put in a little piece of spline. This is spline. It turns a groove into a tongue. So you put that in there. And then you would nail the spline, and then coming up to the nosing, you would just make an L cut, because it overhangs on this side, so you just make an L cut, mark it there, go up to the base, mark it there, then you have your L cut, and then you just put that in, and then you would nail this nosing right where you want it, and then you would put this, hit this in with a mallet, and then you get this nice and tight, nail that, and that's how you would do it at a stair nose. When you're ready to work up a chalk line, so what I did here is I just pulled out a chalk line, and Christian snapped it for me, and then I got a board, I turned it around, marked it, and cut it off. Then I put the board so that the back edge is at the chalk line. And then I used another board and marked it all the way down. So there's my mark. I would take that out, I'd cut it, and then I have my rip. So I put that in there, and there it is. Now, to keep it in place, I'll put in a couple nails in it. That's an 18 gauge nail gun, and that's what the little nail holes are, and this is 16 gauge, so these are a little bigger. then you're ready to switch this air hose to a nailer and get going with the nail gun. So people ask me, what do I do when I get close to the wall after I can't use the nailer? The nailer doesn't fit in anymore, I can't nail, so it fits into about here, so I can nail this row. It's already nailed, just did another one. So, you get to that point, I gotta switch back to this gun. And I still can get it through the tongue and groove right there, so where the nails aren't visible. Put it in there in the groove without hitting the wall. So what I gotta do is I gotta switch to this 18 gauge to make the nail holes smaller. That way they're less noticeable. And put in some top nails. So I'm out of nails, but anyways, you would top nail this. You top nail this board, you put it in. Get it tight. Top nail it with this, bang, bang, bang. And then when you get to that last board, how do you cut it? Well, you can use a tape measure, or you can put the board directly on top of the other board. And you put another board on top of that. Use your pencil, mark your rip. There's your rip. Cut it on the table saw. End up with the rip. Got expansion room. Tip of the screwdriver is 3/8, and it's smaller than 3/8, and that's about the shoe that they use everywhere. 1/2 inch to 3/8 shoe. Quarter round. Toe kick molding, a couple different names, but that's how you would do it.
And all the wood floors are done.